mijn kop. Ik weer dekker moest ziek alleen een paar deemt op. Geef weer geen zacht lid, die drop.
Welcome to Kill Me Now with Judy Gold. I'm your host, Judy Gold, and what a week. What a week. Any questions about this horrible Will Smith, Chris Rock thing? I want you to know I 100% stand with Chris Rock. There is no reason to publicly privately assault someone for a stupid fucking joke. So there you go. Also, I wanted to let everyone know, if you are in Long Island, I'm going to be at Governor's in Levittown on April 9th. So get your asses there. That's Saturday, April 9th. Right now, we have the incredible, the very interesting and funny Zarna Garg. I met Zarna not too long ago, and wow, she's pretty amazing. So do not sit back, do not relax, do whatever you're doing, but listen, because it's really kind of a great story, as they all are. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this week's Kill Me Now. I mean, I know I have been killing it on Kill Me Now. My guests have been superb. And I'm really thrilled to be interviewing a woman who has not been in my industry very long, but has achieved success that most people it takes, let's say, about 20 years to get to. But her story is fascinating, and she's a sensation. I would consider her an overnight sensation. But that has a lot of mishigas that goes with it and blah, blah, blah. So, ladies and gentlemen, today on my podcast that I do as a labor of love, because I make no money doing it, we have Zarna Garg! Woo!
Namaste. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Oh, Zarna, let me just tell you something, Zarna. I grew up in New Jersey, and the next town over from where I grew up is Edison, New Jersey. So,
that is the holy land for us.
Yes. So, yes. And just FYI, I grew up in Clark, New Jersey. I'm semi-ashamed of it because it's such a racist, horrible place. I didn't pick it. We moved there when I was 5, so it wasn't my decision. The houses in our neighborhood weren't even built yet. So a lot of them. So it was a new place. I was unaware of the KKK and all that stuff that was there. I think my parents were unaware of it too. But, Edison, that's where the Clark pool was. That's where my father dropped dead. Thank you. But yeah, I grew up next to, literally, it's part of our town, Edison. Is it the largest Indian population in the United States?
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's been my dream to live in Edison, ever since I came to America.
No way.
No, I'm telling you, it was my dream. I don't know how I ended up on this island. I'm in Manhattan. I don't know how. I feel for years, I said it was Godzilla and me. We're stuck here.
Right. But you know what? You don't want to go to Edison. I'm telling you. Just visit and go eat in the restaurants. Do not.
Well, that's the thing. The food, the grocery stores, the Indian. It was my dream. I was I would just have a house in the Patel Brothers parking lot if I could. So I could walk in and get fresh cilantro every day. And somehow my husband, we took a wrong turn and we ended up buying a house in Connecticut for a few years.
Wow, Connecticut?
What the hell is that? I know, where's the Patel Brothers here? And he's it's so good. It's beautiful. There's a beach. Who wants
There's a beach in New Jersey. What are you talking about?
We're Indian. We don't go to the beach.
I know.
We don't know what to do on the beach.
Tell Shalab. Is it Shalab?
Yes. You said it just right.
Shalab?
Yeah.
Tell him to shut up and women rule. Okay, listen, he's very cute. I looked at some photos. He's very handsome. Zarna, I guess you could say your fame came from TikTok, but you're so much more than a TikTok video. my sons made me go on TikTok, your daughter or your son made you go on TikTok, you know, as you've described in multiple interviews, it is a it's a way to get through to multiple generations of people, which is very smart. And you do have a very business-like mind. And the people I know who have looked at comedy as a business and have that business acumen have done extremely well, because there are a bunch of people, as you know, that part of their brain doesn't work. Like for me, I do come from, you know, my father was a tax attorney. My brother, you know, a lot of CPAs, doctors, attorneys, the Indians and the Jews, very similar.
It's the same, right?
So I do get, and my partner, Elisa, I do, that's the Jew Bell, by the way. She is a business, you know, so she's always like, Judy, you know, so I do get a lot of, and that's exactly how she talks, by the way. I do get a lot of good business advice in my ear, but it's not how I think. I think like that more now that I'm older, like, fuck you, you're not taking advantage of me. But, you know, I never had another job. Like, and so I think when people come to comedy as you know, an adult, you were married, you had kids, you were successful, you have a law degree and a Bachelor of Science degree, you do look at it as a business. And I was like a 19-year-old college kid who's like, this is my dream and dream and dream and fame and dream and fame, you know. And so I think you're getting the best of both worlds. So let's start at the very beginning. You were raised in Bombay.
Yeah.
You were born into a wealthy family.
Yeah, very wealthy.
And
I found a way to lose it all.
Right, but we'll get to that. But you know, you lived in Bombay. What is that like? I mean, there's definite major income inequality, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, absolutely. Do you think we're approaching it here, the same kind?
I mean, there's income inequality in America, and it's not good.
Right.
But India is a whole another level, because the numbers that you talk about.
Right.
So you've got a few million handful of people who are very wealthy.
Right.
And then you've got like 900 million poor people.
Right.
So there's no real middle class in India, even though they've been trying to make it grow for my entire existence. It's a little different in America. Like American poor is still like, you have water, you have,
right,
you know.
Right.
You have
but we are losing the middle class as you know.
Oh, absolutely. There is undoubtedly, there's a problem here. There's no doubt. But I'm just saying the scale, just the humanity, because America is what, a little under 400 million people, and this big, gigantic landmass. India is 1 billion people more than that in 1/3 of the land. So if you think of how many human beings are stuffed in how small a space, just visually alone, it's jarring, whether you're rich or poor. Like, you know, when that flight lands in India and the door opens, the sea of humanity that comes at you,
right?
You have to be ready for it.
What was it like before your life drastically changed when you were 14? Prior to the age of 14, what was your life like?
It was great. And it's crazy because my life was the life of an American teenager in India. Right. I read Archie's. I watched Three's Company, Come and Knock on My Door.
Come and knock on my door.
Yeah. Bootleg copies of everything that you guys probably had here, I had there. And that's why my existence in India was a little like, people used to be like, who is this American? I was too American when I was in India, and I hadn't even been to America yet.
Did you go to private schools with other wealthy people?
Yeah,
so you were sort of segregated.
Segregated. My school was one block, like one city block away from my house, but I wouldn't go if my car and my chauffeur weren't there.
No, you had a chauffeur. Well, all right, what was the chauffeur's name? What's the chauffeur's name?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, it's a really long name, Thakur Rajendra Prasad Singh, and he insisted that he had to be referred to by his whole name every time.
Oh, God.
He felt like he was working for a wealthy family, and he deserved respect for that.
Right.
But everybody has a chauffeur in India. Human labor is not a big deal. Chauffeurs, drivers, maids, there's cooks for each person.
No way.
Yes, way.
Wait a minute.
By the time this podcast is done, we're going to be like, why are we here?
I know. So wait a minute. So how many kids in your family?
I'm the youngest of 4.
Okay. So there's 4 of you. How big was your home? Palace?
For India, massive, 5,000 square feet.
Oh my God.
Like that's massive in India.
Right, because there's not as much land.
And the Park Avenue equivalent. So 5,000 square feet on the Park Avenue of Bombay.
You have your own room, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. My own room, my own bathroom, which is a huge...
What?
Yes.
Oh my God. Your own bathroom?
Yes.
I'm going to go. I really am. I might stab myself by the end of this podcast. Okay. So you had your own bathroom. I mean, did you have family meals? Like how did it work?
Absolutely. Every meal was like, we had a lot of cooks. So everything was fresh made.
How many cooks did you have?
2 or 3 for sure. Because, my mom ate something and my dad had his restrictions. And we lived like if you could imagine very, very, very rich people in America, that's how we lived. Even though we were not that rich, we were rich enough to live that life.
So you had cooks, you had a chauffeur, you had apparently. Did you ever make your bed by yourself?
No.
What?
No, no.
I gotta move to India.
No, never made my bread, never did my laundry. I didn't know how that stuff got done. It just got done.
Go ahead.
You didn't throw things in a hamper. You just dropped it wherever.
So you'd get up in the morning, it was like, and all you had to do was dress yourself and everything else was.
Yeah, everything. I mean, even dress yourself is questionable because there were people to help.
No, I can't. This is like Downton Abbey. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, exactly.
So, and were you close with, did you call them servants or workers? What would you call them?
So they all had names, of course, but because I had an all-American heart, which is still inexplicable where it came from, got yelled at by my parents every day because I would sneak the servants in, the ones who lived in our house, to sleep in my room because I had air conditioning in my room. And It was so blistering hot out that I couldn't stand that they had to sleep in one room, like 5 of them, and there was like barely a fan. So I would sneak them all in and be like, sleep on the floor in my room, and they would.
Oh my God, they must have loved you.
They loved me, and I was very loved by everybody. My family too. I mean, my parents would yell at me and then they would get over it and be like, this is how it is in India. And I would be like, but it doesn't look like it's like this in Archie's comics. Like, it's like a little different. Veronika's family was very rich.
Right.
In Archie's, I was like, they don't have people sleeping on their floor. Where is everybody?
Did you have to find all this American stuff on your own? Or?
No, it was part of the world. Like, everybody traveled. The richest people in India came to America to summer. So they brought back everything.
And these are people from India would move to America and then come back into India.
They would just come for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, but they would like bags and bags of like American chocolates and hair products. And I remember the perm was big back when I was young. So we all rushed and got a perm because Americans were getting perms.
Wow. You got a perm. I got a perm too. It was so stupid. Look at my hair.
So stupid.
First of all, were you aware, or at what age were you aware that you were privileged?
No, I knew. No, you're privileged in India because the poverty is in your house. It's not around. It's in. The poor can't even watch TV. They can't, you're in a house with 10 TVs. The poor can't sit down and watch, the servants. They are, everything is delivered. So who are all these delivery people? Like the milk would get delivered fresh every day. The fruits, literally, what is the best fruit in the market today? And it would show up at 7 a.m. But some little, and often, I don't know, your listeners want to hear this. Often it was little kids who would be like,
no, It's awful.
But that's the reality. So I was very aware, hyper, and if anything, I always had a social conscience. So I remember being very young and opening a Bank of Bombay in my bedroom and thinking, how can I get these guys bank accounts? Because they had no bank accounts.
Do any of your siblings feel the same way as you, or your parents?
So, they're all good people, but they never questioned the system as much as I did. I railed against the system ever since I can remember. I was like, couldn't understand why it was this way. And why.
And you saw them as equal people, your servants.
And I saw them as, better than some of us, if you ask me. Like, there are a lot of rich brats. And I'll tell you this, I was very rich, but I was never bratty. It just wasn't my thing. But I had friends. Friends who would slap their servants, beat them up.
No way.
It's all part of life in India. It's really, if you've seen the movie The White Tiger, that Priyanka Chopra produced a year or two ago, it's actually pretty real. And I saw it.
It's so incredible that people don't, and that if you're brought up in that, you don't see, that's all you know. So
I think in my case, because I was the youngest and often my own parents or my siblings didn't have time for me, I spent so much time with the help that
and you bonded with them. Right.
My heart was always with them and I was always crusading for their rights.
Did you forge this bond like where you would tell your secrets, or when you ran home from school? Was it a very close relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. And they knew everything, what was going on in my life. I knew I played with their kids. Often I played with their kids. I was the English teacher to their kids because they didn't have access to English. But I loved English. So I was like, let me teach you ABCs. Come on over.
So a lot of these kids that were, delivering the milk or, were uneducated. They did not get.
Yeah, they had to work to support their families.
So crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Can you imagine now when my kids whine about something here in Manhattan?
Right. I know, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't get an Uber. I had to wait 3 minutes. Like, shut the fuck up.
It was on the other side of the street. Like, I was like, either I'm going to become that mom who kills her kids or I should do comedy and try to find some gold in this.
Right.
Yeah.
What was school like? Was it Americanized? Did you have grammars? Did you have extracurricular activities? Was there, here, was it a public school? Was it, because the government, we have public schools here.
Yeah. I went to a private school, a very elite private school. And
what was the name?
Kambala Hill High School. It was British people left it behind and we kept it, I guess.
Okay.
And it was a great school. I loved school. I'm one of those rare Indian women who just loved being educated, loved reading, loved learning.
Was that encouraged or was that discouraged?
No. I'll tell you overall, here in America, read a book. No one in India is saying read a book. Why would you read a book? It's not math.
It's all factual and mathematical and engineering.
It's not math. It's not a science experiment. Like, why are you reading a story?
Creativity is not fostered or
and especially discouraged among women. So even if there was a reading privilege, it would have probably gone to my brothers.
Right.
But with me, my dad would have been like, but why? But because in his mind, the more I knew of the world, the more problematic my life would be.
Right.
Because then I would have all these ideas of independence and freedom and, So.
And for a woman, that's just the worst, or a girl.
So our newspaper used to get delivered at 5 a.m. in India. And I was so curious what's happening in the world that I would read the newspaper cover to cover at 5 a.m. the minute it walked in. But my dad used to yell at me because, he wanted the freshly pressed newspaper, like not rumpled.
Oh, my father you couldn't touch the newspaper before he...
Right?
Oh, my God, that's a Jew thing, too. That is a Jew thing. It was, you couldn't touch it. There couldn't be a wrinkle or... So
I used to read it and be so scared that he'll
Right.
find out, I would put it under the sofa cushions and sit on it and get it back. So that by the time he touched it, he didn't realize that I had already gone through it. But I was that crazy, curious kid that was like, if we came at 4:50, I was like, I get 10 extra minutes.
Right. I mean, it's so interesting, and we'll probably get to this later on, but that, you think of, Indian women who come to America and they're so accomplished and they're, such high achievers, and yet that is discouraged.
Well, look, there is a very large population of India that's educated and believes in. I just happen to come from a more traditional family,
Right?
And by the way, for clarity, it wasn't the intention wasn't to ruin my life by any means.
Of course, right?
My father arranged all three of my siblings very successfully. They're all doing very well today. My sister has her own airplane. There are days when I'm like, what was I thinking?
What? She has her own airplane?
Yes.
I need to meet her. I need to meet her.
Her husband is wildly successful. They've been happily married 30-something years. All three of their kids are doctors. See, what did I do with my life? I even had to...
Where does she live? She lives in America.
She's in Ohio.
In Ohio, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I hate her, by the way.
So, you know what I mean? My dad thought that in their world, that insular life where you don't know much about the world and they're going to guide you. Right,
it's easier. What you don't know can't hurt you.
Can't hurt you. That was more their mindset. He wasn't really a mean person, and my family wasn't really like, oh my God, like, poke her eyeballs out so she doesn't. It wasn't that.
Right.
It was much more like the world is so mean. Don't get involved with the world. We're going to find a safe spot for you. So
how much younger are you than your second youngest sibling?
10 years.
So you're a mistake,
don't
you think?
Big mistake. Yeah.
Big mistake. So it's 10 years and then
10, 12, and 15.
Okay, so they were all formed, it was all planned, and then Zarna.
Yeah.
Okay. Which in a way, even the way you came into this world is part of, who you are and why you're so curious, because you weren't expected. You weren't, I love that. So you have this beautiful life and you're 14 years old and your parents are planning a wedding. Is that correct? Or were they involved with the wedding and your mother gets jaundice?
Yeah.
And no one noticed, and it's just because they're so preoccupied.
No one, including her, noticed.
And
she was fully yellow and she didn't realize.
And this is something that could be it's very treatable. Babies get it when they, and she dies suddenly.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're 14 years old. I mean, that must be the major defining moment of you. And
in hindsight, at the moment I was just, you learn survival is such a primal instinct.
Right.
That it's kicks in immediately. Like at that time, my only thought was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Because she did shield me from a lot of, my dad's crazy ideas. And
what was she like? What was,
So my mom was a working woman, actually, shockingly, back in the day in India. She was a nursery school teacher.
Oh, what was her name?
Yeah, Jyotsna.
Oh.
So she worked. So she knew what it was like to have your own income, which is very, very few women in India know what that feels like.
I know, just even if it's not a lot, just to be able to know you earned that yourself and it is yours.
Yeah. So she knew what that felt like. And she was but she was a pragmatic woman and she came from that world. And her, older kids had all been successfully arranged and she kind of bought into it, even though she would tell me, she would let me read. She understood my passion for the newspaper and this, like she would find little workarounds for me. Do you want to get a copy of this? Like if we got a copy of Teen Vogue or something, it would be like, oh my God, like it's Christmas.
Right.
But she would find ways to find a copy for me because she knew I was like obsessing over Growing Pains, I think was a TV show, Family Ties. All these shows, I was watching them and every day was a struggle. Like, how do I get the next episode?
I mean, it seems like she was molding you, letting you know you're allowed to have hopes and dreams and be an individual. What a beautiful legacy to leave, you know?
Well, at the very least, she didn't think I was committing a crime. Like, you would think otherwise that some woman is committing a crime reading Vogue.
Right. She dies. It must have been so devastating. I can't even imagine.
I think she died was a shock, but the fact that she just went from healthy to dead in 2 weeks.
Right.
And in India, no one really talks to the kids. This is a cultural thing too. Like I've noticed in America, it's a lot of like, let me explain to Timmy.
Right.
This is how. No one does that in India. There's not even the genre of kids films, kids movie. It doesn't exist. Kids watch everything. They watch movies where girls are getting raped and murdered and mauled because the adults can't be bothered.
Right.
No one's going to pay ticket money to go watch a movie. What adult's going to sit through a kid's movie in India?
Right.
No one. So the bigger shock for me was like somebody told me my mom was going to go get a checkup and then she never came back.
Oh.
And I think they just forgot. I think they forgot to tell me.
It's so awful. And at that age. So what happens is you are 14. Your father, I heard you in an interview say that he was broken. And here you are, and your siblings are married off. So first of all, what does that look like? An arrangement? Like, how does that work? Like, what happens? What is the process? So who's the oldest? Is your sister?
My brother is your brother. Oldest, then my sister, then another brother, and then me.
Okay, so how does that, like, can you go through that process?
So the calculus of the arranged marriage is what I've written my screenplay about. It's what motivated me to write it because I think in America, you've heard the phrase arranged.
Right.
And everybody knows that means the parents are involved in some capacity.
Right. But, I mean, they do it. The Hasidic Jews do it. And, if you watch Shtisel, you see how they do. Yeah. Okay. Right.
But in India, it's down to a precise science almost.
Okay.
It's like a level of horse trading that maybe people aren't aware of here. So you could have, like, there are marriage brokers, which now, thanks to Indian matchmaking and shows like that, people know that these brokers...
Right. Oh, yes, we watched that. That was a great show. But
so you saw that woman, right? There are brokers like that all over the country.
And they're not nice. I mean, if you watch Fiddler on the Roof, they have Yenta. She's a marriage broker. So... Yeah,
I mean, their job is to, to manage expectations on both sides and tell you, you can't get a doctor because the girl is 5 foot. She's not even 5 foot. And he has a receding hairline, but she's wearing eyeglasses. And she could be fairer. Like, she's very dark, I don't know.
Oh my God.
Like, I remember, when the Meghan Markle interview dropped with Oprah in America.
Yes.
And she was like, oh, the royal family wanted to know what the baby's complexion
color,
would be.
yeah.
Like, the whole of India was like, and like, this is every grandmother in India.
Right.
We couldn't understand. Like, it was so shocking. And Oprah is like, oh my God. And everybody was, oh my God. And the Indian WhatsApp lit up. We're like, what happened? Like, what did she do? Shouldn't the grandmother ask what, we couldn't understand. My people couldn't. I understood because I'm here now, but they couldn't understand what she did wrong, the queen, by inquiring.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
They hired this woman.
Yeah. A man in my case.
Okay. And so the men are also brokers?
Yeah. The biggest brokers are men, of course.
Why? How does a man know? N-O.
Oh, he knows. He's going to make you step on a scale and be like, I need to see how much you really weigh.
Oh, go fuck yourself. Oh my God. Awful. awful. Okay. So, all right. So your brother, they have someone, right? And then, so what happens? You have a meeting with the...
So my dad didn't even hire. The day after she died, my mom died, he said to me, you need to get married.
Right. So this is why you leave.
I'm done parenting. And I could tell that he was he was shocked too. Everybody was shocked.
And the fact that the culture doesn't process things, that's what I love about Shiva, when the way Jews do death, where it is this, here's what you're going to do for the first 7 days. Right. Here's what you're going to do for the first month. Here's what you're going to do for the first year. And it's a very gradual process of allowing yourself to grieve. So in your culture, it's not like that. It is.
Well, there is technically a 13-day grieving period.
Right.
But the reality is that the quest to just survive is so great that not every family is honoring that. And honestly, think about even Jewish families. If the dad died, the mom might honor all the traditions. Right. But if it was the other way around, would every dad honor every one of these traditions? I'm not sure.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? In my case, she died, and my dad, who was the most pragmatic, we are going to survive everything.
Right.
Was
there emotion? Did you see him cry? Was there?
Never.
Terrible.
No. He was like, look, she's gone. That's, she's gone, and now you need to get married.
So he says to you, you're 14, I can't parent anymore. That was her job, basically. So you need to get married. And you realize, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Well, I didn't think I thought I was going to reason with him and be like, I don't want to get married, but I would continue living my life. Right. Well, I wasn't planning on leaving, but he thought that if he pushed me enough, he would scare me. And he's like, no, you don't have that option. You're either getting married or you have to go find your own way. You think you know better? You read all these books? You think the Americans are coming for you? You know everything? Go find your own way.
So you leave, you have $9 in your pocket.
When you're 14 and you leave, you think life is going to be a pajama party at your friend's house.
Right. Now, when you made this decision, this conscious decision that you were going to leave, who did you tell?
My friends. Who else?
Did you tell the servants or
they all knew. Yeah, absolutely. They knew. And no one thought I would leave. Everybody
they thought, all right, Zarna's being crazy. Yeah,
she'll be back tomorrow. And they thought he'll go and get her. Everybody thought somebody's going to break and the situation will be resolved.
And what's going on in your head? Do you remember, did you realize, were you like, oh, you guys don't realize, no, I'm out of here.
I had so many friends because of my extremely privileged life that I was like, I'll live with them for a few years.
Right.
What's a big deal? They all have servants and big houses.
Right. They can fit me.
Kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. His mom said she loved me. And, and 2 days later, it's like my mom says, you have to go back. I was like, go back. I have nowhere to go back. I'm here.
Right.
And then and that's when I was leaving, my dad is like, where are you going to go? And I said, I'm going to go to my friends. And he's like, you think you have friends? All that is going to disappear the minute you leave this gate. And it was and I was like, he doesn't know anything. My friends are the best. We watch TV together,
So you pack up your bags.
One bag.
Okay. You leave.
Yeah.
Where do you go first?
To my best friend's house.
And what happens?
And her mom, of course, she knew my mom had to come on in. So the first day or two is very, what can we do for you? But by then they realized that I left without my father's consent.
Ah.
They didn't know, right? They just thought this kid is shocked,
right.
And she's my kid's friend. And they were all friends with my mom. So they were like, come stay with us for a few days if it's going to make you feel better. And then slowly, as news traveled that my dad's not on board with this and that I've actually kind of little bit run away, it became like, no, you need to go back home. You need to work it out with your dad. It was like one after another, the doors started shutting on me.
How do you get to America?
So my sister was in Ohio.
Right.
And I told her 2 days into the situation that I can't live at home. And she's like, if you can make your way to America, you can live with me.
Now, did she come back for your mother's funeral?
Well, she was in India because we were preparing for my last sibling before me's wedding. So she was there. But she had left at the time because she had to go back home to her husband.
Right, of course, to her family. Yeah.
So during the whole turmoil, but she left me and she said, you need to find your way to America and we're going to bring you there and you will come there. But the practicality of trying to leave India and come to America by yourself with a visa and a passport and all that it takes, that was a whole another project. And I remember going to the US embassy every day and going like, I need a visa. And I was so simplistic in my mind because I had read that America is a democracy. That means your president has to listen to you.
Right.
So I was like, but my sister is telling you guys that she needs me there. So what's the problem?
Oh, yeah. So, but it's good that you were so innocent like that because it kept you going and going and going. So are you going to school while you're trying? Are you still going to your school while you're going to the embassy?
So in India, you can pay people to attend school for you.
What?
And it's not a lot of money. I mean, a lot of girls don't even go. Their parents just pay to get the degree.
That is crazy.
Yeah, because they don't actually want their kid in the school. They just want the degree so they can say that their kid has a degree and whatever. So I didn't even have to pay. Everybody in my world knew the mess I was in.
Right.
And so I would show up if I could from wherever I was sleeping the night before and take some exam, do something, keep it going somehow while I was trying to figure out how to come to America. And at some point I just broke. I went back to my dad. I mean, my driver, actually, the chauffeur found me and he took me back and he said, you just need to come back. Nothing's going to happen. I was couch surfing for over a year.
Wow. Well, you were a comic then.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing you know what, honestly, now that I trace the roots back, it's like that year of people saying, oh, let her come for Diwali dinner. She makes people laugh.
Right. She's joyous. Yeah. It's good to have her around. Yeah.
And I knew that I could make everybody feel better about their lives, no matter what was happening in my own life. And now in hindsight, and I read, before I became a comedian, I read Kevin Hart's book, and he has a similar story up top of his mom and being invited to people and things. And that was the first time I was like, oh my God, could it be?
Right. It's I've heard you say this and I say it in my book, comedy is a coping mechanism, but it's a weapon. And it's also, if you use it wisely, it disarms people and will get you everything you want or need. And as Jews, we've had to use it because, when you're persecuted, it's the best defense. Okay. So you go back, but then you eventually how do you get to Ohio?
In my innocence, one day the US embassy said to people said to me, go, I was like, I don't understand why not your president and my sister. I was babbling anything. He's like, oh, go talk to the president yourself. I was like, okay. So I went to what was famously the American Library in Bombay. American Embassy had a beautiful library that anybody who wanted to could go in. And I started reading, like, how do you call the president?
Right.
And I saw, you have representatives. So I started writing to everybody that I could. I was like writing my whole dramatic life story. Like, my sister is there and I want to be there and I'm going to study. I promise you I'm going to be good. And I started sending letters all over the place. And one letter reached a desk in Ohio that he's like, okay, if she's willing to come here as a student.
That is amazing.
Somebody is willing to pay for her, which my sister was willing to pay for me to go to college. He's like, back then, international students were a rare commodity.
Right.
Full-paying international students. And in a small town in Ohio, you know what I mean?
Yes.
He approved. Do
you know who the representative is?
I don't want to say because I don't want to get him in trouble, because in a post-Trump world, we've all been scared of putting this story on.
Thank you, whoever you are.
Yes, he is now retired, and he
have you ever met him?
Yeah. As soon as I landed, I went to say thank you to him, and he was like, "Study to your heart's content." I was like, really?
Now I'm gonna take a wild guess that he's a Democrat.
Democrat, yeah.
Oh wow! What? Bing, 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 bing. Okay, so you go to your sister's, and I mean, thank God for that. And
my sister saved my life. I mean, and she, even though she was arranged very young, 16, 17 herself, her husband, who's a doctor, said to me, he goes, "You are going to do what you want to do. No one's going to tell you."
I love them.
They saved my life. There's no
What's her name?
Parul.
Oh,
Parul, and she lived.
Parul, I love you.
And she continues to be my biggest champion today. Anything happens, I'm running to her. Yeah.
So you then go to University of Akron.
Yeah.
And you get a BS in finance.
That's right.
And then you go to Case Western. Do you go immediately to law school?
Immediately, because they were willing to support me, my sister and brother-in-law. And I was so scared. What if they change their mind? That I finished undergrad and law school in 5 or 5.5 years, all of it. I never took a single break. Because you don't understand, when you're living on somebody's
right, you just want the independence, right?
No, and also you're really insecure that if they should change their mind tomorrow, they had their own kids, they had their own lives. They were never. They were.
But that was it. Was that in your head and that had not?
They never said this was me.
Yeah, this is all in your head.
I had been kicked out of so many homes by then.
Right.
I had been kicked out of so many homes in India by then, where they were they took me in, and the next day they're like, you know what, my dad needs to talk to you, and I knew what that meant.
Right.
So I didn't take a minute off. I raced through the whole thing. I was like, let me just.
Did you live, you didn't live at college, right?
No, I lived with her most of the time. And law school, I moved out for a year and a half because it was a little far.
Right, because Case Western. Yeah. So, and I'm sure you got straight A's, is that correct?
Mostly, yeah. Actually, law school, I was not that strong a student. It was more B's, but yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Also, yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of Kill Me Now with Zarna Garg. Love her, love her, love her. Kill Me Now is produced by Laura Vogel, edited by Colin Schmaling. This podcast would not be possible without the help of Brittany Jo Sowards. If you have not subscribed, if you have not left a review, fuck you. No, you really need to, because I need people to listen so I can keep it on the air. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Also, if you have not read my book, yes, I can say that when they come for the comedians, we're all in trouble. Now is a really fantastic time to read it, especially after this debacle with Chris Rock and Will Smith, who is 100% wrong. So I think the book would explain a lot. Plus, I wrote it. Plus, it's a great book. So, yes, I can say that when they come for the comedians, we're all in trouble. Get it. The audiobook was in the New York Times book review. It's really good because I, Judy Gold, recite the book. If you live near Levittown, New York, which is on Long Island, I need you to come to my show April 9th, Saturday. I need a lot of things from you. I need to thank all the people who listened to the end. I know you're out there. And I promised I would get a list of names and go through my social media, but I didn't do that. And so now I feel guilty. Well, I always feel guilty, but No, I really feel guilty. I am going to do this. At some point, I will be thanking the people who listen to the end. But just know, if you wrote to me and told me that you listened to the end, I'm thinking of you. And only you. That's it. I want to nap all the time. I don't know. Anyone else feel like napping all the time? And let's get this weather warm. I can't take it. Also, check everything out. I'm going to be in LA, May 6th. At the Elysian Theater, and then I'm taping Netflix Is a Joke, the standout special on the 7th. There's 7,952 LGBTQ plus people on that show, and I'm one of them. So go to my website, judygold.com, and you can get my book there. You can see where I'm performing. You can read about me, because I'm so fascinating. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And TikTok, I have to do more TikToks. I haven't done any in a while. At Judy Gold, JEWDYGOLD, because I'm Jewish. We got a lot of great guests coming up on the podcast. I'm really excited. And I'm really excited that you are listening, because I do it for you. I mean, I do it for me because I love it, but I do it for you. It just me. I really do appreciate it 1,000%. And I don't know what else to say. Oh, yes, I do. So long!